Welcome to Politically Basic. I'm your host, Kyle Campbell, and I'm thrilled to introduce you to our next guest. You may know her as the Patriot Barbie, but Lindsey Graham is much more than that. Truly a patriot, she was a business owner who risked everything to do what she knew was right. In defiance of pandemic lockdown mandates, she had an entire state and its leadership weaponized against her, but she did not back down. A political and media frenzy came right on the heels of her courageous decision, and she quickly became a representation of strength in the face of adversity, a powerful role model for so many Americans during a time of fear and confusion. She's gone on to achieve great success and made quite a name for herself as a strong, outspoken, God-fearing wife, mother, author, entrepreneur, and inspiration. Lindsey, welcome to Politically Basic, and thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, so you are no joke, lady. You are one tough ma'am. So tell us what happened when this all went down. It was the COVID-19 pandemic, and you were running a business. Tell us about it and tell us what happened.
Yes, so it was 2020, May 23rd to be exact, when the entire country got locked down. My husband and I owned 6 businesses in Oregon. I owned a 25-chair hair salon. We owned 4 franchise tanning salons, and we had a 30,000 square foot gym. All, of course, non-essential. So when the lockdowns came, we ironically, we'd had a brand new baby. So I was on maternity leave and said, great, 2 weeks to flatten the curve. That's just 2 weeks extra that I get to spend with my baby. So I'm fine. And 2 weeks, of course, turned into another week, another week, another week. And as hard as it is to believe, the entire country was still complying at 6 weeks. So May 2nd, I kind of looked at where we were as business owners, having 6 rents to pay, having employees that were unemployed, having 25 hairstylists that couldn't go into work, myself not being able to work. And I said, I would guess that we're about $100,000 in debt right now, just after this, 5-week period. So I'm going to open. I'm going to go back to work. I'm going to open my hair salon. I'm going to tell my girls that they can work. And I am going to work, because if we don't, we are going to lose everything we've worked for 15 years. And that was May 2nd. It quickly reached public platforms that I was planning to reopen in 3 days on May 5th. And before I even opened my doors, the state of Oregon very, very quickly had the state agencies that could, which was almost all of them, threaten me, target me, and harass me into attempting to get me to close back down again. So within that, 1 week period, I would say it was like 10 days, I had the state of Oregon threaten to throw me in jail, issue me $50,000 a day fines, a Class C misdemeanor. They threatened to take my business license. They threatened to revoke my hairstylist license. They threatened to kick me out of my building, and Oregon OSHA threatened me with a $70,000 citation. And by 72 hours after reopening, Child Protective Services came to my house, threatened to take away my 3 children, and the rest is kind of history. That's when the story went global. People recognized it's not about your health. This one salon owner is attempting to open when Home Depot is open down the street. But if you do not comply, this is what they will do to you. They will threaten your livelihood.
I mean, the reaction to you just trying to continue to provide for your family and give that same opportunity to your employees or the people who were working with you and for you at that time is just remarkable. Did you have any idea when you made the decision to open back up, what was going through your mind? Did you have any idea that this would be the reaction from the state and all of those agencies?
No, I was not political whatsoever. I mean, whatsoever. I don't even know if I voted in our local elections. I was not spiritual at the time, was not walking with Jesus. And so this decision really just came from believing fully that the government can't control a virus. They never could. So I knew right off the bat, okay, something is up here. Something is weird, that they think that they can control something they can't see. And secondly, our right to work is a God-given constitutional right. So I did what I did because I knew that it was the right thing to do. I knew that I had a right to work. And I was so ignorant. I was so asleep. I did not realize that there would be a political divide about me opening my business. I literally said to myself, this is going to be insane. Everyone is going to support me. Like, no one is going to disagree that I have a right to work and make money. So I had no idea that there would be tyranny, that the state of Oregon would target me, that the left would hate me and slander me, that I would receive death threats for this. Like, I had no idea what I was getting into. I thank God for that, because if I had known the fight that I would fight, I probably would not have done it. Looking back now, I have no regrets. And even now experiencing what I've experienced, I would not take anything back. But if you were to tell me that I would have endured this, I probably would have stayed compliant. So I'm really glad that up until this point, I was completely ignorant politically about all of the divided America between the left and the right.
Of course, that makes so much sense. And very insightful that you can recognize that. What happened when you started getting those phone calls, those knocks on the doors, CPS is showing up, OSHA's showing up? What happened? Did you get an attorney, or did you guys just try to fight this on your own?
In the very beginning, I'm telling you, I'm such a hard-headed person. God knows it. I would just rip up the letters. I was like, you don't have authority to do this. Some things were just so astronomical, like threatening to take my hair license. I'm thinking, I took a test with the state to get this license, right? Which means I read the book. And this has never happened in history. So you're trying to tell me that you're going to revoke my license for a law that doesn't exist, for a rule that doesn't exist, for something that there could never have been a rule written for, because it's never happened before. I know that you can't do that. So I would, rip up their letter and I would post it on Facebook. Hey, look at the threat that I got today. And then I would ignore it. Same with kicking me out of my building. It's like, I signed the lease. I read the lease. I know that you're telling me that I'm not obeying local government laws, but I also know that this isn't a law. So I'm going to rip it up, post it on Facebook, and move on. At some point, an attorney did come along. So I was so blessed. I mean, people were coming out of the woodworks that wanted to support me. And an attorney said, I'm here for you. I know that you're not going to pay me right now. I know you have some give, send, go money coming in. We'll talk about that later. Right now, I just want to make sure that you stay open. And it was because, America was looking at me inadvertently, against what I knew would happen, was like, okay, let's see if she can withstand government tyranny. How far will she go? And so it was really strange, the amount of pressure that was put on me to maintain this fight for freedom. But the attorney, when he came along, it was amazing. I mean, it was game changing, because when CPS showed up, I was like, that's it. We're done. I'm closing. Like, I can't have them take my kids. And he says, no, this is illegal what they did. We're going to file a tort claim. We're going to this. And so he brought me through that. But along the way as well, it almost got to be kind of laughable. Like, the more they threatened me, the more overreach it felt like. Like, again, you're trying to tell us that this is about people's health, but I'm open and I'm doing like 5 people's hair, and Walmart is open. So the fact that you're threatening with me with all of these things really just shows not that you do care about health, but that you would really, really like me specifically to shut down. And the only thing that I am specifically doing different than Walmart and Home Depot is I am defying you. And so the more and more they came at me, the more I realized, you're trying to break me. And now if you take this one step further and I break, we show the world where the line is, right? We show the world, like, you can come after me for this, and this, but here is where you break me. And so for me, as a determined, hard-headed, persistent person, thank you, Jesus, I kind of was like, you're not going to break me publicly. I cannot allow you to show the country that everyone has a breaking point. So I'm not going to have one. So that's just, really what kept me going.
Wow. Girl, do you watch Hunger Games and you look at Katniss Everdeen and you're like, that's me.
Yeah.
That is
I
so
hope
who
we
you
don't
were.
ever.
No, but I
Yeah.
mean, like, you were the guinea pig and then you became this figure, right? And so many people I know were behind you and supporting you and saying, don't give up because you were the tester case. If they
Yeah.
weren't going to get you, then they weren't going to get the rest of us. And thank God you were so strong. So you had an attorney come and support you. And I know you had a lot of support from people who were praying for you, lifting your arms, making donations, telling you to keep going. What ended up happening at the end of all of that with the state of Oregon, with your business, and with your family?
So I did remain open. I never did shut back down. I stayed open against all of the threats. I think it was around May 18th, 19th, 20, somewhere in there that the governor was finally like, you guys can be open. And I was like, yay, thanks. Now my fight is over because I'm allowed to be open. And it was kind of like this sigh of relief. But the fight was far from over. I mean, it's obviously far from over still. But I had throughout that time, like I'd had stylists walk out on me because of the controversy. Again, I was like, what? You disagree with me standing up for your right to work? I'm so confused how this doesn't make sense to you. I had so many stylists walking out on me. Now I was a rental salon, so the only way that my business survived was having stylists that would pay their rent. So they were walking out. That was really stressful. I had 25 stylists when I started this thing, and then the George Floyd riots started, and that was been, I guess, around June. And because I had become this sort of conservative face in the news, when the George Floyd riots started in Salem, somebody posted online, when you start burning down businesses, start with Glamour Salon and kick Lindsey Graham's ass. And, I'm sitting at home with my new baby and my kids, and we just fought the government, and like somehow I survived it. And I only got out with a $14,000 fine. And
Good Lord, they
I was like,
fined you at the end of the day too?
yeah, they definitely fined me $14,000. Still fighting it to this day. Like they
Wow.
refuse to drop it, even though they cannot prove that it's valid. So when the George Floyd riots started and they threatened my salon, I'm going, wait a second. Now I got to go like protect my salon from being burned down just because I wanted to work. Now this is insane. So I did a call to arms and I said, I will not allow this violent group who's mad about something that has nothing to do with me to burn down my business that I just literally fought the government for weeks. So called arms, like come help me protect my business. And 400 people showed up outside my salon with guns, ARs, ex-military, veterans, police officers, biker gangs, you name it. And we protected all of downtown Salem, actually, because 400 people would not have fit outside my salon. I had businesses calling and saying, I don't want my business burned down either. I have glass windows. Would you send some guys to come protect my business? And I'm like, yes. So we were running ops. I call it, we were running ops in downtown Salem. And the chief of police actually said, if you had not called to arms that night, Salem would look like Portland, like it would be burned to the ground. So that was amazing, right? My salon survived, and so did everything in downtown Salem. But because of that night specifically, I got labeled a white nationalist, a white supremacist. I went from being, the town murderer, the COVID killer, to now this, boycott her business. She's a nationalist. She's a racist, all those things. So we got completely cancel cultured to the fullest extent. So, when cancel culture comes for you, they really come for you. Their goal is to destroy your life. And they did. They did so much damage that all of my stylists walked out on me. People were canceling their memberships to our gym, and they were canceling their tanning salon memberships. And we ended up with so much damage, so many threats, so much violence, so much hate that we ended up having to sell our home in Oregon. I closed my salon, didn't get any money out of it, didn't sell it, just closed it, shut the doors, left the furniture behind, like ran for our lives, moved to Arizona. And we lost everything. We sold our tanning salons, we sold our gym to the partner, we closed my salon, and we left Oregon for good.
Wow. You protected that downtown sector from most likely being burned to the ground. Mm-hmm. And instead of a thank you or some gratitude, they basically ran you out.
Yes.
Yeah. That's incredible. And I'm so sorry that happened to you. But I think I know that if I asked you if it was worth it, not knowing what was on the other side of this, because on the other side of this, you have really had success, been successful. God has used your experience for good. I mean, at that time, had I said, Lindsey, was it worth it? What would you have said?
While I was going through it, which was not very long. So we moved to Arizona in September. I opened May 5th. So May, June, July, August. By September, we had already purchased a house and were moving to Arizona. So it took less than 3 months for them to completely destroy 15 years of hard work. And while I was going through it, it was, it was suicide worthy. Like I tell people, unless a person would have committed suicide, it was so hurtful and painful and devastating. And I, in it, was very, very depressed, like losing a lot of weight, didn't know what to do. It was something I couldn't control either, right? I mean, I had reopened. I was not wrong to reopen, so I stood by that. I was not wrong to not want my salon burned down, so I stood by that. I could apologize if I thought it would help, but I would not, because I didn't owe anyone an apology, and nor would that have actually worked, because these people really are, they're terrorists. And while I was going through it, it was the second hardest thing I've ever done in my life. But that did not last long. I mean, the day that we realized our life in Oregon was over, I think the last stylist had walked out of my salon. The partner of our gym had called and said, you need to sell to me. We're going to lose everything if you don't. My husband and I said, let's move to Arizona. My dad's moving there. Your mom wants to move there. Let's just go. Let's get out of here. Never in our life have we ever been able to leave this state, because we built our whole lives here. Now that life is over. I mean, it is gone. And I had a conversation with God, and I said, I trust you. I know that you would never allow something this devastating to happen to our family if you did not have a greater plan. And it was the first time in my life I really had to have true faith, right? Because it's really easy to have faith when the Lord is blessing you. Very easy. I had to have faith in the moment where he had just taken everything from me, everything that I'd ever known. 15 years of hard work. We had no retirement. We had no job. We had no career. We had no home. We had nowhere to go in Arizona, nothing to do, no plans, nothing lined up, right? I didn't move to Arizona for, a hotshot job. We both left there unemployed. And so to look at the Lord when you don't have anything, and when he has taken everything from you, and say, I still trust you. I still believe that whatever you're doing, it's for my good. It's to prosper me and not to harm me. That was the moment that he really was like, okay, now watch what I can do. And he has been showing off ever since.
Yeah, it's tremendously courageous. And you had another label slapped on you. I think maybe it was meant to be a dig. The Patriot Barbie. How did that come about?
That came about in June during the George Floyd riots. So, like I said, I was not political. I didn't talk about who I voted for. I was not the far right-wing extremist that they were labeling me. And they were calling me a Trumpster and all of these things. And when I started really getting cancel cultured in June, I'd had enough of these people. It was like, you've poked me enough that I'm ready to poke back. So I went and bought my first ever Make America Great Again hat. Didn't even own one. Went and bought one, put it on, and took a selfie and posted it on social media and said, if you're going to call me something, I guess I'm just going to agree that this is who I am and I'm ready to admit it. And they made a meme out of that picture and said, I don't always play Patriot Barbie, But when I do, I kill people's grandmas and I steal, or yeah, and I steal their money. And referring to the Give Send Go, of course, that I was accepting donations for my $70,000 citation. And I went, did you just call me the Patriot Barbie as like an insult? So I went, and that day I went and bought the Patriot Barbie domain. I secured Patriot Barbie, the Facebook. I changed my social media to Patriot Barbie. And I just sat back and pictured whoever had made this meme, like pulling their hair out, being like, that's not what I was trying to be mean. And that is how Patriot Barbie came about. And it's stuck ever since.
Yeah, whoops. What a terrible thing to be called a patriot, as in someone who loves her country and feels appreciative to live here, and named after a pretty iconic figure in American culture who is beautiful and capable and strong. Yeah. Maybe they're still rethinking that one, but you certainly turned it around and used it for good. I love that story. And then, Lindsey, you wrote a book. You wrote a book called Targeted. Tell us about the book.
Yes. So that was the moment that I think things really turned around for me in Arizona. I went through an identity crisis when I got here because, again, no job. I left, a 6-figure job doing hair. I was a boss babe. That was my identity. And when I came to Arizona, I didn't have anything lined up. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. I felt like, okay, my whole life just got ruined. What is next for me? I can't just go back to doing hair and rebuild from the ground up. That just sounded so daunting. And the Lord told me to write a book through 4 different people in a 12-hour period. And so I went, oh my gosh, that's so strange. I'm supposed to I've never written a book. Like, it was not on my radar to write a book. But it was very distinct when he called me to do it. So I sat down at my laptop and I started writing the story, thinking, this is so strange to be writing a story of how I fought the government. It's like the tiniest portion of my life. It's like, a few weeks and then a few months if you want to count the cancel culture and the George Floyd rights and all that. But when I sat down to write, I found myself kind of trying to tell the story of how this person, at this time I was like, I'm Lindsey Graham and the Patriot Barbie is kind of my alter ego. Like, how did this Patriot Barbie person exist to defy the government and continue to defy the government against all odds and like be so courageous to stand up against the state of Oregon? And I found myself writing kind of my life story because I couldn't really explain how I became the person that would be strong enough to do this without also explaining the things that I had been through that had made me strong. And a lot of those things happened in my 20s. And so what I ultimately found was 2 things. One, that I wasn't writing the book about defying government. I was actually writing my testimony. And 2, I wasn't writing my story. I was writing God's plan. Like, I was verbalizing and putting on paper that God has been planning something for me my whole life. And I feel like I am finally in it and he has prepared me for it. And if you read the book, it is like, holy smokes, you literally have been in God's hands being prepped and primed for this fight your entire life. And after writing the book, it was like, this isn't necessarily going to be a bestseller. I'm not going to be famous for this book. But this was God's way of sitting me down and forcing me to recognize, don't go back to doing hair. Don't go back to finding another job. You went through something that was so incredibly unique. No one else has gone through. And I allowed it. And I allowed it for a reason. So I need you to embrace this story and embrace this plan. And I need you to fall into your purpose and listen to me and do what I say. And trust me, the plan that I have for you will be better. And I have been doing that for 4 years.
Man, we're stubborn, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
You nailed it in the beginning of our chat. When God has work for you to do, and we're just busy doing our own thing, our own plans, he's going to get us there one way or another, isn't he? And he really took you he took you on a hard right, let's call it, and got you to where he wanted you to be. I encourage you guys to check out Targeted, One Mom's Fight for Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Happiness, because this story is really important. And I think one of the most important things is what you just touched on, Lindsey, is that you have experienced something at a level that most people have not, thank God. But you can speak to it. Now, we're experiencing a lot of this in our country right now, this weaponization of the legal system, lawfare, using government agencies to control, attack, harass, move the needle, accomplish goals. We're seeing it right now. It's happening to a former president and presidential candidate. It is happening in some ways to the sitting president's son. Everybody's playing political football right now.
Right.
Through the legal system. I'm very interested in your take on what's going on right now.
Well, I think that my story, though it's nowhere near comparable to Trump's, right? His uphill battle, his fight, the torment, the torture, the overreach, the tyranny against him is far superior to what I went through. But I understand when I say, like, in its entirety, that they will do whatever they can to get what they want in the end, right? So they're trying to use the legal system because it's the only legal way that they can try to manipulate him, prevent him, make it harder for him to do what he needs to do, the same way that they did for me. So it's good to point out a couple things. I told you all of the threats that I endured in Oregon about kicking me out of my building, removing my hair license, removing my business license, all those things, right? Please remember that I also just told you that they actually didn't do any of those things. So they threatened them because that was their way of saying, what can we use? What is at our fingertips? What tools? Even if it's political or judicial or governmental, what can we do to at least intimidate this woman into shutting up and shutting down? And perhaps she will be scared enough with these threats that we won't have to follow through with them. We just threaten her. Well, newsflash, I wasn't scared enough to comply. I stood up, and look at what we discovered. You couldn't take my children. You couldn't take my hair license. You couldn't issue me a Class C misdemeanor and throw me in jail. You couldn't kick me out of my building. You did none of those things. You just threatened me. And so it is clear to me what's happening to President Trump. They are going to try with every tool they have at their fingertips to do whatever they can to make it so hard for him to accomplish what he wants to accomplish. They're still hoping, poor things, they do not realize he's not giving up. They're still hoping at some point this guy is going to stop because his life's going to get so hard. We're going to make it so hard. We're going to threaten him with so much that he'll just give up. And that is the goal, right? Or that the goal is that they can slip something through, like 34 felony counts. And they did. They used the right person, or they bought off the right person, or they manipulated the documents enough. It's BS. We all know it's BS. I say it's complete BS, but it is just what they're going to keep doing until they can make it so hard for us to fight back. And so the goal is that we just need to stay strong and continue to fight back.
Yeah, that's really wise advice. President Trump seems to have a pretty clear view and understanding of how empty a lot of these threats are, but he's still got to go through the motions. And one issue that has come up that a lot of us are talking about right now is, if it can happen to a former president, it can happen to anybody. And you were one of those anybodies. You suffered on you suffered the consequences of not doing what the government wanted you to do. So you're sort of providing this roadmap for people who find themselves in this situation. And sadly, this might be the case for some Americans going forward. What's the best piece of advice that you could give someone should they find themselves in a similar situation when they feel like they're doing the right thing and having government agencies weaponized against them? What would you say?
I would say that, if you know that you're doing the right thing, if you absolutely know without a doubt, and I'm not talking about worldly, I'm talking about in Jesus, in Christ, biblically, because there is going to be a pretty big difference, right? According to the world, according to the government, what I did was wrong. So if you want to say governmentally, legally, sure, I guess I was wrong. If that's what you're going to say, then I can admit that. But it wasn't wrong because biblically and spiritually, I knew that the ability to provide for your family is a God-given right. The ability to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, right? And this wasn't the pursuit of happiness. That's not money, but it is liberty. The liberty to know that I worked hard for what I did and I deserve to enjoy the rights that came with the hard work that I did and the legacy that I had built. If you know that what you're doing is right, not according to the world standards or the legal system standards, but your biblical standards, then please stay strong because they will do everything they can to silence you into submission, to terrorize you. And Revelation says that this is nothing compared to what we're going to go through when we get tried in the fire and have to deny Jesus. And so this is a training exercise. So the question is, are you going to fail? Are you going to fail and are you going to comply when it's something as dumb as a job or a car or a friendship or a family member that's going to hate you because you stood up for something that you believed in? If they can find your breaking point, then they will know how to break you the rest of your life and they will know how to break everybody else. So when you know what you're doing is right, you better stand on that and stand strong because there is something about going to sleep at night knowing that an entire state government tried to silence me and break me, but I knew that what I was doing was right, and so I could go to bed at night sleeping well, being like, you tried, but if I would have complied, I would have been going against what I knew was right, and that would not have given me peace.
You're a great role model for strength and for integrity. And it has served you well. Were you always this tough or are you a bit tougher now? Because I'm kind of thinking that maybe you could have stood outside your salon in Salem all by yourself without those 400 other people defending it. And that would have been intimidating enough. But has this really toughened you or have you always been this way?
I've always been hard-headed. I've always been persistent. And I have always been... there's another word I was thinking of: hard-headed, persistent, determined. My parents could have told you that I was born that way, and I believe God made me that way. And again, I believe He made me that way for such a time as this. But no, I'm a lot more so nowadays. And this fight has, if I wasn't that way already, this fight would have even more so. But this is even more hardcore. I mean, I have to be even more hardcore for the fight that is ahead because this was just the beginning. These lockdowns were just the beginning. And we are going to need a lot more determined, persistent, hard-headed people to stand up next time.
Well, I'll agree with you there. And it's very refreshing. I think people are looking for that kind of strength. So you are certainly someone to look to model how to stand firm in your beliefs, your opinions, your faith, your ideology. And so we'll thank you for that, for being just a great example of really knowing who you are and what you believe. We're gonna need that in droves coming up here in a few months. Now you wrote the book, you went on to take on additional entrepreneurial ventures. You've got some e-commerce online. I was doing a little online shopping the other night. It's called, what is it called? Pretty Little Patriot. You're doing a collab there. And did you also start some payment processing service? Tell me a little bit about these ventures since you've moved and since all of this has happened.
Yes. So I took the last 3 years just trying to figure out, like, what is the Lord doing in my life? He's been, blowing up my platform, giving me opportunities to speak on really big stages with really amazing people. And every single time I get an opportunity like that, of course, I glorify God. That is the point. And in the last 6 months, he's kind of given me permission and the go ahead to be an entrepreneur again. So I was afraid of business for the last 3 years because I was like, they're just going to follow me and cancel me again. But I learned that if you found your company on your principles and your clientele and your following and your fans, if you will, support what you believe in, then they can't really cancel you, right? So the leftists aren't shopping at Pretty Little Patriot, obviously. So I've jumped back into entrepreneurialism, and I founded a fashion brand with my best friend Kendall in Kentucky. She's also a conservative influencer. It's called Pretty Little Patriot. I have a merch company, just very simply called the Patriot Barbie Shop, where I do like hats, t-shirts, sweatshirts that are all patriotic and Jesus. I have a payment processing company called Patriot Ventures, and we offer payment processing for conservative businesses who have been threatened or have actually been like shut down by some of these woke companies like PayPal and Stripe. I'm an ambassador for LaunchCart, which is basically the conservative Shopify. So again, Shopify is very woke. They will delete your store if they don't agree with the things that you sell, and LaunchCart will not do that. And then the last thing I have, and this has been extremely, extremely fruitful, is My Freedom Cart, which is one store, one manufacturer in America that makes toxic-free, made in America toiletries, skincare, makeup, cleaning supplies, vitamins. I'm a referral partner for them. And it's been very lucrative because as I'm waking up, right in front of my audience, I'm able to share these things with my audience. And a lot of people don't have resources. They don't have these resources. Where do I buy makeup that men aren't modeling? Where do I buy skincare that doesn't have toxins in them? Where do I shop for my kids? How do I get this stuff and ditch Amazon? So I'm able to use my entrepreneurial spirit and my patriotic connections and my convictions and my morals and my beliefs to come alongside these other companies and for my own companies to promote and be involved in things that I believe in now. So instead of just doing hair and making money, I'm doing things that have purpose, that have meaning, that go along with my brand, that align with what I believe in. And there's so much more in that than just, I run a business and I make money. I would much rather be doing things that offers resources for people that believe what I believe and that are waking up and that want clean products and that want to shop a fashion brand, that believes in XX and XY chromosomes, things like that. So I'm enjoying my entrepreneurial spirit as a conservative and as a Christian and being able to bring my beliefs into my business platforms.
What does the future hold for Lindsey Graham? Are we continuing? Question. Are we going to see you run for political office down the line? What's in your future?
I get asked that a lot about political office. I do not anticipate running for a political office, although since 2020, I gave my life to the Lord. I told him that it is his. I told him that I will obey. If he calls me into it, I will do it. I pray that he doesn't. I do not want to run for office. But the good thing is, the most amazing thing is when people say, what's next for you? The answer is, I don't know, because I literally would just wake up every day and wait for God to open doors for me. I'm running these businesses. I'm enjoying every minute of it. I'm enjoying being a keynote speaker. I wrote a children's book last year that's being internationally published July 2nd. I have so many ideas and so many things that I want to do. So I just kind of wait for God to give me the go ahead to do them. And when I know what's next, then so does the public, but I don't even know what's next until you guys do also, until God tells me.
Well, we'll sure be eager to know what the next steps are because you've been just a really powerful and effective voice for these issues, for our nation, for the everyday American. So I can only imagine there are additionally great things in your future, Lindsey, and I'd chat with you all day if I could, but I know I have to let you go at some point. But thank you so much for being with us today, for sharing your story. It's really remarkable, and just how God has used those darkest parts of that valley that you walked through to help so many others and to really just be this powerful voice for good. So we thank you and just look very much forward to what the future has for you.
Thank you so much. And thanks for having me on your show today. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for joining us for this episode of Politically Basic, where we break down the basics of all political issues and let you decide. Be sure you're following us at politicallybasic.com and at politicallybasic on all socials so you don't miss a single episode. We'll see you next time.